look now. You crave the love I gave, and we'll do it again. A cold night getting warmer now. The ground shakes as our love gets loud. We are the champions of the night. We are the champions of the night. Yeah. We are the fighting type, the ones that burn so bright. We are the champions of the night. I'm ready to champions of the night. Can't tell if we're dreaming now. We watch as the fire falls down. One thing playing on our minds. Time stops and we don't make a sound. You crave the love I gave, and we'll do it again. A cold night getting warmer now. The ground shakes as our love gets loud. I'm ready to love. We're the champions of the night. I'm ready to champions of the night.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rigged for Week 7. You've got Visac on the call. Join with you today with the one, the only Stingers manager of our hearts, A Squared. How you doing, Squared?
I just woke up like 10 minutes ago, but I'm doing fine.
Not gonna lie, I got out of bed about 30 minutes ago. Just woke up about an hour ago. So
And also, I realized I'm out of coffee, so we're not. So we're all right.
what's up, Puppet? Glad to see you here. Well, I think today, to get things started, I think maybe we should go back and take a look at some of the trades that have happened. Just as the trade window is closing tonight, it's closing tonight. Central. So if you want to make any more last ditch trades, you gotta make them, and you gotta make them now. Honestly, we have to go back a little bit because our last rigged
It was like 2 weeks ago because we skipped last week.
right. So would that be? I don't think. Yeah, I don't think we got the Betancourt trade in, like the last one I missed. Yes, because we got the Trudy Fruity DeQuan Smith. So we're actually going to head back to April 17th. So trade between the Walkers and the Retrievers. Walkers get Betancourt and Hart. The Retrievers receive Yankee Nobrim, first round pick, and 2 second-round picks. Initial thoughts on that, Squared?
A really good haul for the Retrievers. First round pick is nice. It's a Walker's pick, so I'm expecting it to be probably in the teens. In the back half of the draft, but we've seen in previous drafts, there's great quality in the first round, and the 2 second round picks, both very nice. But giving up Crew Hart, Betancourt, two staples of the retrievers. To be honest with you, I don't think he No Brim has that much value. I think he's at best a depth piece, but a starter in the SSBL, I'm not convinced that he'll ever be a starter in the SSBL. But nice depth piece.
Here's my concern for the Walkers. I think this trade makes sense at face value. I really think it does. Betancourt and Kruhar instantly upgrades your first and second. Great hitters as well. My issue with this trade is I feel like it's very much ball players last season, where the ball players sold the farm that they could compete last season. And to be fair, the ball players were 11-3. And I'm not saying that the Walkers can't go all the way, but this is the type of trade that makes me think about you need to win this season because you are getting decimated next season. And now you have, how many picks do they have now in the next draft? Because they already traded they traded the Dragons pick that I gave them. I'm pretty sure I also got that Knights pick. So I traded both of those pieces went over. The Walkers have 2 picks next draft. And they have them in the 3rd round. They have the Gauchos 3rd round pick, and then they have their own in the 2nd. So they've got 2 late round picks. Of course, again, with everybody retiring next season, most teams are going to have at least 2 additional compensation round picks. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But for me, like, this is a very much sell the farm type thing. Next up, we've got the Skulls get Zach Sass and the Walkers season 8 round 3, and in turn the Walkers get season 4 George Pierre. So getting a younger piece. What are your thoughts on that, Square?
I it's just so for me. Last trade I liked a lot more because, like you said, they're going for it, but they're gonna get nuked next season. Is George Pierre a difference maker? Not at all. I think again, George Pierre, another guy. I think he's a depth piece, maybe a fringe starter in the SSBL, but is he a difference maker? No, he is S4. You're not using Zach Sass. He's been sitting on the bench the entire time, but giving up the round 3 pick, it's just so for me. I think the Skulls kind of win this a little bit.
I think they hedge their bets a little bit by getting a younger piece, as well as, like you talked about, Zaz was running the bench anyways.
Yeah.
Now here comes probably one of the biggest bombshell trades that we've had for a little bit, is just in terms of the amount of assets that got traded. Cyclones get season 7 round 2 from the ball players, season 8 rounds 1 and 2 from the Gauchos, Bad Hugh, Daydream Fever, Cody Ariano, which is you, right?
Yes.
And then the Guachos. It's always this way. It's Gauchos, G-A-U, not Guachos. Receive season 7 round 1 Cyclone, season 7 round 1 Moonshine. So 2 first round picks in exchange for first round pick, 2 second rounds, and Fat Hugh, Daydream Fever, Cody Ariano. And that immediately to me just looks like the Cyclones got a whole lot there.
Yeah, they did go a whole lot there. I really like Daydream Fever. The 2 first rounds. If I was the Cyclones, I would have maybe tried to do this first and the second, because but they got a lot of picks out of it. And I really like Daydream Fever. Fat Hugh, I don't know what season is Fat Hugh? Is he older or is he
If we can look at, if you pull up the ratings, shout out to Zarby, who I know isn't watching, has put together, made it so that we can see the seasons for everybody. So he is Cyclones organization. Fat Hugh is a season 2. Daydream Fever is a season 4, and then Tony is a season 5.
Yeah, Tony Ariano, he's a decent pitcher. He's not going to be a star. He's not terrible. He's not going to be a star. He's just average bullpen guy who's going to be who hasn't seen the majors yet. I think Daydream Fever is probably the centerpiece here for me. I like her a lot. I like her ratings and the good haul picks as well.
For sure. Next we got 2 second rounders for Pendragon and Chris Slump. Man, the Gauchos. I feel the Gauchos have been on sell mode for past 2 seasons, and they have they had a lot of picks. They actually have 7 picks in the season 7 draft. They've got 4 picks now in the season 8 draft. And in terms of, just get a load of this. Next season for the draft, the Gauchos have the first round picks of the Cyclones, Knights, their own, and the Moonshots.
Dang.
So they have a lotto pick. Depends on if the Cyclones make it into the postseason or not. The Epic is a little bit interesting. They've got the Knights and the Moonshots, who will both most likely be like upper teens, but 4 first round picks for a Gaucho squad that is just going to be in big rebuild.
Yeah, this trade here, I really do like it. Skulls get 2 season 4 players who aren't bad. Chris Lump, I think, is a quality pitcher. Pendragon, Death Piece, fringe player, nice shortstop, good rating, decent ratings, and 2 second round picks for the Gauchos. So I think this is a good trade for both teams.
All right, and then we got into the trades that happened this week. So straight up Moose Shaw for Jocinda Smith. So the Skulls and Unicorns have been very active. Jocinda Smith actually making a way because she came over from the wrong fielder.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct. And then Moose Shaw again making a new stop as a part of the Unicorn.
Yeah, Usha is she's been bouncing around. I think how many trades has she been a part of now? This is her second or third. I've seen her been bouncing around for a while, and she's a good player. Jocinda Smith, she's also a decent player. Just a straight up trade, good for both teams.
Next up, we've got another banger of a trade. Cyclones get season 8 round 1 of the Lumberjacks. Rachel Kim, Ralph Wright, Bubba McClay, Caleb Halford, Carson Halford, in exchange for 2 second rounds, a 3rd round, and Billy Glenn.
This one does not make too much sense to me. It's a lot of season 2 players getting dumped. You get the round 1, but these season 2 players after next season are after regression. I don't know what they'll be like. But that's 3 picks. That's a decent amount for a lot of season 2 players in that round 1.
Yeah, I think one thing to consider is that, especially now that the doctor has obviously been doing side league, but he's been able to update his roster a little bit, and part of that is he believes he has a roster that can compete, and I don't disagree with him. I think especially if you look at the state of the Epic, the scariest team has been the Wildcats or the Bombers, and they've looked,
They've had a couple games where they've looked vulnerable.
You feel much better as a wildcard team in the Epic than you do in the Heroic right now. And by wildcard team, I don't mean like teams like that are in the Heroic right now that are technically wildcards. Because like pretty much the top 3 in the Heroic Legends, I wouldn't consider wildcard teams. I consider them competitive teams. So we're in a position where it's not that hard of a road to get to a Super Series. So it adds a lot of depth, as well as you'd give up a lot of picks for it, but you also know with those Cyclones picks that if you're trying this season, those are going to be upper round picks as they are.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we have Bombers get the round 2, season 7. They get it back after they traded it away, and what comes around comes around. And they got the Moonshots 3rd round in season 8. Gauchos get a season 8 3rd rounder from the Bombers and Brutus Banger. And I was talking with Whitney after I made my trade yesterday, and he was like, I should have maybe potentially held out, get more in exchange for Brutus Banger. So he's not feeling amazing about that.
I told him the same thing. He probably should have held out a little bit more. I mean, it's a decent haul, and he does have a surplus at first base. I did tell him you should have probably held out for maybe another, because Bruce Banger is still young. He's a season 5. And I think season 4s I'm noticing are becoming less and less valuable. They're becoming like the season 2 and season 3s of last season, slowly but surely. But yeah, it's a good trade for him, but I think he could have got a little bit more.
Gaucho is saying assign, and I think that now that we're more so putting call ups and call downs, so they assign Bruce Wayne to the majors and send down Roger Marsh. This will start a seesaw effect for Roger Marsh, who will continue to go up and down between the Gauchos roster as they continue to make various trades. Next, we've got Bruce Hot Mike for Cal Cooley and Kip Shaw Jr.
I really like this trade for the Vikings.
Yeah,
I really like this trade.
I think the actually want to talk about Puppet saying the Cyclones won that other trade. Fever does have a good stat line as we look at it was trade to the Cyclones. Right? The issue with Fever is that she's pretty much engaged because she's got 28 fielding as in and only 48 as a third baseman. That's either the Fever. And then right now I think the balance point is season 3. I agree. I think season 3 you're a little bit hesitant to trade to get a season 3 right now. Anyways, going back to this trade, I think what will be the indicator is we have seen what Josh can do with very, very fringe players and making them solid. Saw what he did to Jajinklage Morgoon. I still think that Gary Starr is a better player than Jajinklage Morgoon, for sure. But he took that trade that he made with the Dragons and made Jadinklage Morgoon honestly like a solid linchpin, a part of his defensive and offensive targets. What can he do with Kip Shaw Jr.?
You can make him into, because Morgoon, what he did with him, Morgoon wasn't particularly like dominant. He just, in that playoff run, he had a couple clutch hits for the Skulls that were integral. And I think Kip Shaw Jr., they already have a nice outfield. I think it just adds to it, and maybe maybe he's like another ridiculous Morgoon for them.
But he's gotten a lot younger with these trades. And even like when we talk about like the trade that I made, it's not a huge beneficial for me, but mainly the advantage is that like it's knowing what assets other teams have and being able to stretch it. So like instead of Cal Cooley for Bruce Hot Mike, getting Kip Shaw Jr., who Kip Shaw Jr. may not start. Kip Shaw Jr. may not be a part of this Skulls lineup or Skulls organization for a long time. Like, what can Kip Shaw turn into? Is he going to turn into a solid depth player? Is he going to be included as a part of another trade down the line? So that's where I think that Kip Shaw Jr. plays. Kip Shaw Jr. is not necessarily like the thing that sells his trade. It's the one where it's what is he going to do with that? Because we've seen what the Skulls can do with trading and how they can turn, like, they trade up from like a pea to like a mountain. So that's going to be interesting for me. I think for sure the Vikings win this outright, but let's see what happened with those trades down the line. Next, we have our first potential. I don't know if we've had this trade before, but just straight up picks trade.
Oh no, me and Josh have done it in the past.
Gotcha. But did you do it this season?
No, we did it. I want to say, when did we do it? When did we do it? We did it. I don't think it was season 6. It was season 5. Season 5. It was the big draft. That's when we did it.
Gotcha. So, but the first one that we've had in a while, Cyclones get the round 3 season 8s of Bombers and Gauchos, and the Gauchos get season 7 round 2 for the ball players. I think the Gauchos win this, to be honest, given all the discussion that we've had about the season 8 drafts being of lesser quality than the season 7, which I think, by the way, the season 8 draft being lesser quality, I don't think that that's like a trend. I definitely think that, like, similar to, like, think about like the NFL draft, like it was a really good draft for quarterbacks this year, right? But next season it's not so much a really good draft for quarterbacks. So that's not to say that every single draft past season 7 is going to be a bad.
No, it's just not going to be as top heavy. You're not going to see as many players in the majors to start off. Which, I mean, there are going to be players who can instantly be in the SSBL, yes, but you're not going to see like maybe like everybody can be, like, a lot of people can be in the SSBL. No, it's going to put more emphasis on your minors. It's going to put more emphasis on development, and that's what we want in this league, because we don't want one player to get one season of they start and all of a sudden bang, they're in the minors because we just drafted someone that's instantly better.
Yeah, I think that that's the trend. It's like there's still going to be, especially in the top 10, there are
Yeah.
going to be players that can easily start. And I think that, to be frank, like because I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I've been thinking about, especially that we're talking about what the future of the league, and I think that we're trending in the right direction. Um, I think that we are still going to have. I think someone noted that like the Kip Shaws of tomorrow are going to be 70, 80, 70, 70. And I disagree with that. I think that there's still going to be like 90, 80, 92, 78, 69, players. I think that's going to happen. I think there's going to be less of those.
We just don't want so many players being 90 because
Right. Like,
there's a lot of players who have 90s and you know
so
like I think we have two pitchers who are maxed out or
so
two or three.
I think whoever made that comment, not trying to put whoever threw that comment down or anything, but whoever made that comment, I don't think it's right. I think there are still going to be the Kip Shaws of the future are going to be the same Kip Shaws. The thing is that every team is not going to have 3 Kip Shaws on their line, and that's where the difference is going. It's going to be, and the other thing is that we still have to figure out what we're going to do with fielding and arm. So we already know the league is going to be less powerful because right now we don't have a really solid way to change fielding and arm. I think that's something that we still have to potentially think about. I don't think it's something that we need to implement now, but I think what that does, to be honest, is this next draft, how many really good hitters are actually going to be drafted? Because yes, you can always put them in the DH, but you can always put everybody in the DH.
Yeah.
There will never be a shortage of really good players that are horrible fielders. Daydream Fever is a perfect example of someone that just got traded that could be a pretty good DH and has no other role besides that. So potentially in future drafts, especially if we don't necessarily have any way to affect the fielding and arm, you're going to have potentially more fielding and arm players getting drafted. And there's still some of those that are in the there's still some of those that are in the free agency, right? Let's see.
Yeah,
Robot
so
saying that
there
makes
I
sense. Puppet saying I think we should have weaker players total. Elder saying I think that every team should be able to have an S tier player on average. Having several S tiers per team on average, not so great. And Puppet saying collecting Kip Shaws like the Infinity Stones. Elder, to your point, I think it's okay if a team has
they could
several S tiers.
they
The
could be
thing
like the
is,
Dodgers
yeah,
who
the
have
thing is how much do they the issue is that like in the MLB, the Dodgers are also a really big organization. They can afford to have those and not sell their soul. I think in the SSBL, you're going to have teams that have really good S tier players, but they have sold the entire farm. I'm thinking about teams like the Walkers, the Ball Players, are examples of the future teams that are selling their souls for competition, which I don't necessarily think is a bad way to go about it. Um, uh,
I think we're trending in the right direction because season 4, that draft was ridiculous with the amount of players that came out. I mean, we didn't have minors then, but Kip Shaw, I mean not Kip Shaw. Robin Ryan was already all 90s at that point, so instantly an ace. You had Jose Odor, you had players like Jose Odor, Heimerdinger. You had a lot of players. And in season 5, we dialed it back, still good players, but a lot of those players went to the minors first because that was our first season of minors. And then season 6, I think we did a really good job because yes, you had your Mabel Sparks, your Pete Zaws, your De La Sticks, your Sluggingtons, but I still
who were
think we did
all, by the way, top 10.
who are all top 10, but a lot of those players you haven't seen in the SSBL yet because they needed more development. Like, players Mabel Sparks could easily be in the major in the SSBL, but she's not because she wants more development so she can even better. Same thing with Angela DeVecchio. Could easily be in the majors right now, but she's not because I want her to get more development. And I think we're trending in the right direction. To Elder's point, yes, every team should probably on average have an S tier player, but having S tier players, and like you said, if they have multiple, they probably sold their soul. And I think we are doing that well because in a couple seasons, maybe next season or in a couple seasons, I think instead the Knights, like all these teams like the Knights ball players who are going to get nuked, you're going to start seeing Gauchos are probably going to be on the top. Unicorns are probably going to be on the top. Stingers, hopefully, all these teams who actually like been drafting for the past like 2 seasons, they're going to do well or who've been trading.
So Elder's saying I'm saying an S tier on average league wide. Yeah, I think what Elder the point you're making is similar to what we're making. Which is, it's not so much that there's an issue with S tier players. The issue is that where do they fit in? Also, Pete Zaw was not a first round pick, but Pete Zaw will never play in the field. Is the thing. Like Pete Zaw, like we think of Pete Zaw, he's like, oh my gosh, what an unbelievable hitter. The thing about Pete Zaw is he has 42 fielding and 41 arm. And he's a first baseman, so you could still put him at first, but that's like the overall trend where it's like there will always be those players like Pete Zaw. The issue is you only have 2 spots in your roster for a DH and a first baseman.
Also,
And
to all the people who are saying who want no DH, that's never coming back. I'm sorry.
yeah, like no DH is never coming back. DH is the way. It just makes it more interesting. It, but like you can't have a team of Pete Zaws is the issue, which is why we're not too worried about that.
But we are making an effort in trying to dial the league back with ratings. And I think honestly we've been doing pretty well.
Yeah, and it's a slow thing, right? Like it's implementing any type of balance patch, which is it's not saying that there's an issue now, because to be frank, there has still never been a single team that has repeated Super Series.
We still have great parity. We still have great parity, and I think those teams who those teams who consistently make the playoffs, they're gonna get nuked because we put aging in instead of stat progression.
Puppet saying ball players have no picks in the next 2 drafts. That's exactly what I'm saying. S tier is well over 400, by the way, for batters. Yeah, the Dragons actually have, get this, what if I told you the Dragons do not have a single positional player above 400?
Yeah, you can have a
single
team like
positional player over 400 is to that point.
Robot probably next season or the season after. We're actually pretty close. A lot of teams are like maybe because the Spartans, for example, I want to say we only have 1 Ryzen player actually playing now.
The Dragons will have, I mean, we'll get 2 compensation picks, but both of those are going to be players that are retiring. So we'll have 4 more. So we'll have like a full roster. It depends on what you mean by filled. Because for example, there's bench players. Like for example, there are teams that I think of like I don't know the Lumberjacks who next season have 1 pick in the season 7 draft. They have 3 picks in the season 8 draft. They have 4 picks in the next 2 drafts, and they currently have 3 players in the minors. So there are going to be teams that are going to be having Ryzens for honestly maybe like 4 or 5 seasons in the future, but a majority are trending in the direction of having at least a starting lineup, which if you can get 9 positional players and then like 4 pitchers, you're pretty much already set, and Ryzens are only going to come in sparing.
Yeah.
I played the Spurs in the minors last game. They had 7 Ryzens in the lineup. Yeah, to Elder's point, like there are some teams like the Knights have no picks in the season 7 draft, and they have 2 picks in the season 8 draft. So there's certainly. Let's continue down here for these trades. Retrievers get Grogu, Trace McSorley, French Tater. Unicorns receive Wandek, Woody Walker. Elder, why did you make this trade? I'm not saying it's a bad trade by any stretch of the means. It is interesting given the age of Woody Walker and Wandek. I think straight up getting Woody Walker is really good, especially for what you gave up. But it's interesting that you got a little bit older. Or is it like your team is already pretty young and you don't mind like taking a risk on some older players? What do you think?
Sorry, what was there's a trade that came in that I'm trying to finalize here.
Okay, yeah.
What was the question? Sorry.
Grogu, Trace McSorley, and French Tear to the Retrievers, Wandek and Woody Walker.
I like this trade for the Retrievers. I like Trace McSorley. I think he might be on that DH third base kind of fringe. Retrievers, for the love of God, get a third base who can play the field. I'm just kidding. But I like him as a player. I was actually looking at him when I took Zarbi. It was between him or Zarbi. Grogu, I think, not probably an ace, but probably a decent pitcher. Maybe a 2, a 3, or a 4 starter, or just in the relief. So I think those two players. Are very good. In terms, maybe they sit in the minors for a minute, but I like those. And Wandek and Woody Walker. Hey, season 2, rip, but time to go.
All right, I'm sending this to the high rollers to see if they.
Oh, I was actually doing it, but you can go ahead.
I just sent it. By the way, people in this league don't know how to spell the word receive. Let's point that out there, right? If you could go ahead and once Donut Boy approves that, if you don't mind putting that
Yeah, I'll
into,
put it in.
and I'll hold the discussion for a little bit because I already see. We got
Yep.
trading
I'll
coming
put it in.
between. And it's just approved a trade between the Retrievers and High Rollers.
You can go ahead and talk about it. Since
Yeah,
it's
I'll go
not
ahead and talk
approved.
about it. So the Retrievers have finally shifted out Peach Dropkin. The Retrievers, a team that is currently tied for first place in their division, have shipped out the wrong reliever. And they have gotten a Season 7 first-round pick from the High Rollers and a Season 8 third-round pick from the High Rollers. Let's actually make sure that the High Rollers have both of those picks. They have their first to give, and do they have their 8 third round? They have, all right, they have both to give, so that is a fair trade.
Fair trade. So hey, we just have to double check.
So finally offloading Peach Dropkin. No, Peach Dropkin is a Season 2, so she is not going to get nuked out of yesteryear this off season. I will note, I am happy that Peach Dropkin is no longer in the Heroic Conference.
I think we can finally say the Retrievers sell-off is complete.
Yeah, before it was like, I mean, the Retrievers are not in like a bad position. Again, like, not going to tell anybody how to run their team. I definitely understand that the Heroic Legends is scary, and so it's not necessarily thinking about getting there. But Retrievers, I mean, this is just, dooming the Retrievers. Just a half season past from a Super Series appearance. I think it's safe to say that they are not making the Super Series. They might not even make playoffs if they've lost Dropkin.
Whose third round is that? Is that the High Rollers' third round?
Yeah, Season 8. High Rollers third round. So I'm going to try and get through the rest of this roster movement really quickly. That way we can get to the game scores. So with that trade, Aubrey Hendricks got to the majors, so she's finally getting to see action. A trade that you and I talked about in private, which is Judd French to the Serpents, Jerry Briggs to the Vikings. Doesn't make a lot of sense.
It doesn't make sense
to the Vikings, and the league office is definitely going to have a close eye on future trades in those directions. The Bombers sent down Tyler Benetti, called up Hayden Cray, and then this is in reference to the past, but from that Skulls trade, the Cyclones called up Rachel Kim, Caleb Halford, Fat Hugh, Carson Halford, and sent down Timmy Turner, Smash Perkins, Crystal Hope, and Lyman.
Hold on. Donut Boy, is Dropkin going to be your long relief, and Tipsy's going to move back to the starting?
Oh, man. Oh, that's...
Or is Dropkin going to start now? I'm actually curious.
Because if we take a look at their current rotation,
Tipsy's a long reliever right now.
The High Rollers currently have Dub Mars. Look at this. The High Rollers have Dub Mars, Grin Campbell, Austin Floston, Regina Roundhouse, and then Tipsy Reynolds in long relief. You could potentially send Floston back down to the minors. I hesitate to have someone like Dropkin. The plan is Tipsy becoming ace again. So where does Dub Mars move to relief?
But not positive yet. He's got to make his plans. But hey,
gotcha. Because between Tipsy and you cannot have someone like Tipsy or Peach Dropkin as a starter 3 and on or a or just a relief pitcher unless
before Monday.
Because they've gotten 8 games out of the way. So at this point, we played 14 games in the season. So they played 8 games this season. So the number 1 and number 2 will still pitch 2 games. Moving on, we got, if I had known that she was available, I would have inquired deeply with Large Marge. Gauchos get Miranda Biscuit. Unicorns receive Alfred Walker. This is the only reason this trade happened is because of the discussions that, again, are like 80% sure. I looked back into the SSBL League office chat and saw that Josh was actually the one who said it was a good idea. So I definitely think
nobody was against it. That was the thing.
Yeah, so we just gotta fully finalize it. But this is in reference to being able to remove negative traits with positional points. But I'm telling you right now, and Josh told me
stronger.
Josh told me this before the draft, and I agreed with him. Miranda Biscuit might be one of the best players to come from that draft, not because of compared to other players, but compared to how she is valued.
Mhm.
All right, Donut, thanks for tuning in. We're excited
Good
to see
trade.
what
I
you
love
do
your
with that.
trade. Personally,
The Roger Marsh continues to bounce back and forth as he goes back to the majors, and Miranda Biscuit goes to the minors. Then we get to my trade, which I'm curious to think what your thoughts are. Dragons get Season 7 Moonshots Round 2, Freddie Jupiter, Telly Mackin, and then the Gauchos get a third rounder from the Dragons in Season 8, and Athena Hex, former second round pick in this most previous draft. She was the 27th overall pick in the...
Okay, personally, I was trying to go after Athena Hex, but I can't compete with all these. It's just like to go on a little soapbox. It's hard for my team because when I took over the Stingers, we legit had fucking nothing. We had nothing to work with. Like in terms of players, they all freaking sucked. And my first real piece was Robin Ryan. So yeah, like it's easy for all of these teams to sell when they actually had players. But in terms of this trade, I like Telly Mackin, nice depth piece potentially. That Moonshots pick is nice. I don't like Freddie Jupiter at all because if everyone remembers, Freddie Jupiter had that amazing season in S4, and then the first half of S4, and then he fell off a cliff the second half, and then he bat under 100 in the first 3 games of last season, and then got sent down and hasn't done anything since. So I'm not big on Freddie Jupiter, to be honest with you. Athena Hex I like, but yeah, I think Dragons might win this one still because I like Mackin in the pick.
Yeah, so here was my thought process. Of the 3 picks that I had in the last draft, I'm not gonna go on a soapbox and say, oh, it's so hard to host and draft, because it is hard to host and draft at the same time. I can never make a pick in the middle of the draft because of hosting it, But of the 3 picks I made, Athena Hex was the one I regretted. I don't think she's a bad player by any stretch of the means. She's got a nearly 1.5 OPS because she's got 3 homers in the minors. My issue with Athena Hex was she didn't fit the archetype of the player that I wanted at third. And so for me, I basically, by getting the Moonshots round 2, it's a later pick because the Moonshots I anticipate are going to be taking. So I basically exchanged second rounders, which means I basically traded my Season 8 round 3 for Freddie Jupiter and Telly Mackin, which I love. I love that. I got Telly Mackin.
I like Telly Mackin.
I got Telly Mackin thrown at the end, and Marge didn't mind throwing in Telly Mackin because he already has Neon Dion, so we didn't need one at center, and he was already training him to actually be at first base, which is what I'm going to do as well, is to get him, because you cannot have Telly Mackin in the outfield with that arm.
I have to take a call, so I'll be back in a couple minutes.
Gotcha. Freddie Jupiter, here's you're not going to be listening to this, but here's why I don't mind Freddie Jupiter. That's because this offseason, Stub Esposito will, with aging, most likely be worse than where Freddie Jupiter is going to be. Freddie Jupiter has good fielding, has a good arm. His hitting is not that bad by any stretch of the means. So I'm going to have him in the minors. I could potentially use one of my minors camps on him to get that speed up a little bit. And I now have an incredibly solid third baseman, 80 fielding third baseman, which fielding is so important in the infield. Along with a 67 arm, which honestly isn't that bad for a pretty solid hitter. I'm not anticipating it's going to be really hard for the Dragons to compete next season, but we just got a whole lot younger that we traded Athena Hex for. And then this last trade that just went through, finally get to talk about it. First round in Season 7 and a third round in Season 8 for Peach Dropkin. Again, Dropkin has more upside than some of the other aces that were being traded in this draft, just because Dropkin, or not this draft, this season, because she's a Season 2. So since she is a Season 2, she will not have as much of a fall off. In fact, if I pull up, she's going to lose anywhere between 45 to 65 points, and that's not necessarily coming just straight from hitting. Now, because she is a Season 2, She has 78 speed and 95 fielding that could come from. So even with the changes into next season, she's still going to be a ridiculously good pitcher. So I think that the I don't think that's a bad trade whatsoever. I think got the most that they could from that, and then the High Rollers get a much needed pitching piece to really round out that entire squad. That the same aging range for batters and pitchers. We're in discussion for that. We're because pitchers are a little bit different, having it affects them a little bit more because they have so many higher ratings. But that's still in discussion. But I mean, you can expect for sure at least 45 is going to be a pitcher. At least 45. It's not going to be lower than 40. Because the issue with that is that pitcher started getting hitting stats last draft, I think. So it might have even been the draft 4. I think it might have been season 5 that they actually started getting. So they might have to get not a little bit more than that. And that concludes all of the trade talk. Reminder, the trade window ends in less than 12 hours. So get in any remaining trades. And if you get them in within the next, 30 minutes, we'll be able to talk about them on stream. Well, we've talked about all of this for way too long. So let's go ahead and get into the actual happenings of this week.
I am returned. High Rollers, really good trade for them. I like it. I like it a lot. You got pretty much two of the best pitchers in the league now, in Dropkin and Reynolds. So, congratulations.
We're not going to talk about, because technically we didn't really talk about week 5 or week 6, but I think everybody kind of knows what kind of went down those weeks. So we'll just talk about week 7. Will there be extra draft rounds added with a 5-year agent cycle? Will there be enough players to fill a 20?
Yes, because of the
compensation round. Yeah, because of the retiring.
That's it. We only did that 5-round draft because that was the first minors, and we wanted to fill it, and we had a lot of free agents at that time too.
Yeah. The main reason why it's because the draft used to only be 2 rounds, and now it's 3 rounds. So that was a huge change from season 4 to season 5, going from 2 rounds to 5 rounds. Every draft will have 3 rounds. So there's enough to start filling, because the issue is that you have teams like yours, Elder, who are kind of pretty much like, I don't know. I think the next draft, Elder, you might have to not sign players that you draft potentially.
No, you can just release them.
Right. No, that's what I mean. That's what I mean is that, or rather, like, you're gonna have to let go of some players in order to get the players that you want to have. In order to get extra picks, that's where the compensation picks come in. So you don't necessarily add to your roster, but you do. You do get to like sort of fill them in with older players. Like for me, for example, like Wayne Oreo and Thompson Busby are gonna be on. Although I might. Pierce or whoever. I'm for sure Busby is gone. He's gonna move to a pitching character. But so like next season, I'll have like 6 new players for sure that are part of.
Yeah, it's just like how we think of it. It's just hey, if you have guys on your bench like minors bench, like they're probably gonna be older players. So it's like, why not just retire them? Get a pick and actually have players on there.
And it helps to make the league younger as well. It helps. I think the older teams are kind of struggling with this right now, like the Angels, where they need to have some sort of incentive, because the issue is the season 4 teams. All 4 of the season 4 teams that came in made the playoffs. So like the older teams are struggling a little bit behind. So it helps them a little bit because they have older players, and a lot of teams have older players now too. But let's get into the games. First, Gauchos 4, Retrievers 2. Starting the week off with, I'm still calling this an upset because this is before Peach Dropkin got traded. What are your thoughts about this, Squared? And do you think potentially the Gauchos could overeclipse the Retrievers this season, given the number of trades that have happened?
Not this season. I still think the Retrievers are better than them. And also the Gauchos aren't really trying. But the Retrievers, they still have Richie. They still have a couple players who are pretty decent. I don't think like Bodan's still on the team. Tailwind. I don't think they'll eclipse them, but the retrievers are down there now with them. Gonna get a high pick. They sold off. So unfortunate, but he did what he needed to do.
The god amongst men, Samir Kelwin, went 4 for 4 with a home run. Scored 2 runs that game. Winning pitcher was Stevens. Went 8 innings, only allowed 3 hits against the Retrievers. Dropkin actually was the one who ended up getting the loss. Gave up 3 earned runs in the last 2 innings of the game for that one. Moving on, we've got a huge rout of a Cyclones team. This is the last game before the Cyclones made the changes to their team. So they entered the third round of games at 3-5. They lost 16-2 to the High Rollers here.
Yeah, this is Cyclones again. I've been saying this the entire time. Good on paper, but they haven't done anything in the SSBL since we've been in here. And this is just another.
They haven't. They were doing well in season 4. Last season they tailed off, and they weren't doing well up until we'll talk about day 2 after all this.
I mean, they backed up into a playoff spot and went 7-7. That's just my thinking. It's just. This is a yikes. Flauston pitched decently, just labored with those 5 walks, and the Tipsy Reynolds being Tipsy Reynolds again, and just the high roller hitting, just absolutely destroying them. Strudley, Turnpike, Range all had home runs. Just nothing doing for just the Gauchos. Just a game to forget. Only 2 hits. Just a game to forget.
Donald McDonaldson for the Cyclones gave up 6 earned runs and less than an inning pitched. So that's one thing to consider with the Cyclones is that they've definitely got really solid Kyle Edwards. I think their 1-2 honestly isn't bad. Starts to get a little bit iffy once you start getting down the order and once you start getting into the bullpen. Unfortunately, the Dragons weren't able to really get into that bullpen when we talk about that game. There's a lot of debacling going on in the chat between Lasers and Puppet and how many draft picks are owned. Let's see. In the first round, the Gauchos owned 4 first-round picks, and the Retrievers owned 3 first-round picks. So 7 divided by 20 is like 35% of the picks are owned by either the Gauchos or the Retrievers. But to be fair, all of those are pretty much up around. Retrievers got Walker, Serpents, Retrievers. Those are all going to be upper picks. Gauchos, their only really lower pick is going to be the Gauchos. So yes, they have a lot of picks, but they don't have a lot of early picks. Unicorns, they've got your own pick. You got the Ball Players pick. You got the Lumberjacks pick. Lumberjacks pick is actually looking pretty. Let's go into the first of the interconference games. And start out with a heartbreaker for the Ball Players, choking it at the end. Knights getting a 5-3 win.
Sorry, what?
Knights, the Ball Players choking it, and the Knights getting a 5-3.
Ball Players, oh my god. This was also Knights minors uniforms. The Knights uniforms are terrible.
Well, it's because they're sparrows. you know the natural evolvement from a sparrow is a knight.
But Adrian Walker, what a freaking outing from Adrian Walker! Pitched basically half the game and just absolutely shut down the Knights and their lineup.
That's hard to do.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Northwest still got the loss. Knights just errors, really. That big error for the Ball Players. Knights were able to take advantage.
Yeah, only 1 earned run for Northwest because of that error.
Yeah, huge. I don't remember who made that error.
Homer runs. It's always Homer runs. What is he up to hitting wise? He's not hitting well.
Let me check for
because he's sure as hell not in there for his defense.
Homer runs currently is batting. Oh no. .038.
Hey, he was 1 for 3 this last time. So was it with he adding 1 for 3?
That was his first hit of the game of the season.
Well, no, there's no way that's included in the most recent major stat.
Oh, it's not updated?
No, it's not updated.
Okay, well, before this game, he was .038.
So yeah, he's got 2 hits this season. And what is his fielding? Homer runs is, and he's got 60 fielding too. And he's power versus left-handed pitchers and his stealer. Oh my gosh, Homer runs, a tragedy of errors.
Oh, that's awful. That's awful. But that's awful. Moving on.
Let's get to our last interleague game of the day.
The battle between the wife and
yeah.
husband.
Was this after? No, the trade came after this.
Yes.
But the battle of the pulverizers, Vikings came out on top 6-3.
Is his last name really Pulverizer?
No.
I was gonna say, that's awesome.
Tub Bayphone gets the loss, 4 earned runs in 3.1 innings. Joe Butts gets the win, 1 earned run in 3 hittings. Highlighting the hitting was Yeti Olson, who was 3-4. For the Vikings, actually no home run score, just a lot of death by committee.
That's Vikings baseball, though. That's how they've played their game all season. No home runs, a lot of clutch hitting. Most everybody in this lineup can hit. That's how they've been playing it all season. And I actually really enjoy watching Vikings baseball. It's actually really nice. Like, it's a nice change of pace from the regular, like how everybody else plays, where home runs and everything. But how they play, great pitching, which I hope my pitching is this next year when I get Potto Gold and DeVecchio, because great starting rotation, great pitching, good bullpen, and there's no one hitter on this team that we're like, oh my god, here we go. No, it's a committee. Everyone does their part, and it's a lot of clutch hitting, and I really like it. I really enjoy Vikings baseball when I'm able to cast it.
Yeah, and they're still competing in that division. It's very, very close at the top there. Moving on, we got day 2 of action in interleague. We've got a 13-2 win for the Bombers. Whitney can finally rejoice that his team scored double digits. Winning pitcher was.
Wait, no, I think you skipped day 2.
Oh yeah. Wait.
Day 2
Oh
was
yeah. Because I put them in the wrong order.
I was like, wait, no, because the Bombers were the first game for me.
Yeah, I put them in the wrong order. Vikings could very easily win the Super Series.
Agreed.
Yeah,
agreed.
I don't know if they can do that now that they traded Briggs.
I think the Vikings need a shortstop still. I still think they need a shortstop.
Yeah, Riley Reid ain't it, man. Day 2, Stingers shut out the wrong fielders 8-0. That's gotta feel good for you. Win goes to Maxwell, 7.1 innings, only 5 hits. Kendaku gets the loss, only 5 hits in 5 innings, but 3 hitting. Salsa had a homer, went 2-4, and really no highlights hitting wise for the wrong fielder.
Yeah, kind of. This game was kind of top heavy for us. Botley, DeSalsa, and Kennedy all had multi-hit games. Phelps also added 2 hits. Pikesole was at 1 for 4, but he had a 2-run shot. It's nice to see. My Stingers team should be beating. No offense to Blazers. We should be beating teams like this. Maxwell is pitching above his weight as he has all season. It's nice to see that we're actually winning these games. And even though I am 2-6, I'm actually seeing improvement because we're not getting blown out every game now. Like it's our run differential from last season, and I know there was memes about it. It's much improved. So it's nice to see people hitting home runs. Kennedy, DeSalsa, Botley, and a good win. The shutout, I liked it. Enjoyable to watch.
Next, we got to head to a team that has won 3 out of their last 4. It's the Moonshots 9-6 win over the High Rollers. Huge win for them. Puts them in a tie for first division. Never thought the Moonshots were bad. We all know the Moonshots are not the same team that they were last season. Not as dominant, but they definitely are still one of the best teams. 3 for 4 was long stop for the High Rollers, as well as Omen had a deep shots home runs from AQ, Matty Musgroves, Ben Ark, who first pitch, first swing came off the bench, 3 RBI home run was the one that really did it for them. Winning pitcher was Pat Gross, who went 4 innings, only gave up 2 hits. Nice to see that out of him. Sawamura cleans it up, and Reynolds gets the loss. Said, that she might be heading to a ace position.
The game was really close, and then Moonshots pulled away in that 8th inning with that 5-run 8th. But Moonshots, they really needed this, and now they're back on top of at 5-5 of all records. They're back on top of their division. They really needed this, but I think it gets easier. And I don't know if you want to agree with me, but I think with the Retrievers trading out, I think it gets much easier for the Moonshots now. It's much easier for them.
Coming up, they've got they have to face Brock Hansen with their number 3 against the Dragons. Then they've got the Retrievers, so that's a game that can be in their belt. But they also have Vikings and Overdrafts. Overdrafts, who knows what's going to happen? No one knows what's going to happen in an Overdrafts game.
Let's just say there are decisions possibly being made about the Overdrafts currently.
The Vikings are going to be like, here's the way I see it right now in the Heroic. I don't think that this is likely. Let me be blunt in saying I do not think this is likely. But someone might need to win the Icons in order to get in, because if the Lumberjacks can turn it on here at so if all of the Heroic Legends teams win against the other teams that they have to face in the Icons, there very well could be every single team in the Heroic Legends except for one making it into postseason. I do not think that is likely. I think that there are enough inter-squad or intra-divisional games that have to happen that the teams at the top are either going to go down or the teams at the bottom are going to go up to a point in which I think that the second Heroic Icon teams can still make it in. But that's sort of what the standard is right now.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the nose. That's the standard. But that division is gonna. We could very well see 5 teams come out of that other division. To be honest with you,
5 teams.
We can see all 5 teams come out.
Oh, that's what I mean. Yeah, I guess that is what I mean.
It's possible. It's possible.
I don't think it's likely. Like, if you look at the Lumberjacks schedule, they only have 1 game that's not in the division, and that's against the Retrievers. If you look,
they're gonna beat up on each other unless the Overdrafts realistically. What needs to happen is the Overdrafts just take a gigantic nosedive. Yeah, and it's possible. It's just everybody's got to beat up on each other, but that'd be really cool if all 5 teams came out of that one division and only the Moonshots came out of the other. It would be really funny.
Dragons are the only team that have the Dragons have, let's see, they have 6 games left. Half of those are against Icons teams, Moonshots, Wrong Fielders, and they end the season against.
You know what's funny is that last season everybody was saying how the Epic was very top heavy, but now the Heroic is kind of what the Epic was, where there's a lot of tanking teams and stuff like that. And the Epic is way closer, because if you want to still look at the Epic, in last place, the Stingers are still in it. And the Unicorn's still in it at 3-5. The Skull's still in it at 3-5, like it's much closer, but the Heroic, it's kind of top heavy.
There is a half game that separates 4th place in the Epic from not making playoffs.
Yeah, there's still much work to
do. Moving on.
Okay, yes, still in it, but still, they have a shot.
I think, honestly, looking at the remaining schedules and what has to happen, I think Retrievers make it in. I think Moonshots make it in. Lumberjacks could pull something and like kick out. I mean, listen, Dragons were 6-2 last season. They didn't make postseason, so that was like. Who knows? No. Who knows?
6-2 curse.
Who knows? Well, last season it was 6-0 to start. what we did this season was we got the first loss out of the way right at the gate against the Vikings, then won 6 straight, and then lost against a really good Cyclones team that had Kyle Edwards on the mound. So listen, the Dragons are in first place right now in the rook. Who knows how long? If there's anything that we know is that a Dragons team in first place is always perpetually heading downward. So they could make it out of the playoffs, and the Retrievers could take that spot.
Yep.
Moving on, we've got Walkers 13, Unicorns nothing. The Walkers, Jesus, man, they do this. They just turn it on.
19 walks.
19 walks given up by Unicorns pitching. 7 of them by shit. 5 of them by Grogu, who pitched so badly he's not even a part of the organization anymore. Sam Flowers had 4.
I don't think we need to talk about this game that much. It was an absolute massacre. Looking at the hitting, Kipshaw home run, Ortiz a home run, Galileo Cat.
Galileo, the Unicorns traded him and let him go, and he came back and had a.
This is a game. If you're the Unicorns, just look away and move on, please. God.
That's the one where
19, I think 19 walks has to be set the record for most walks in a game.
I mean, the Dragons came pretty close in our game against the Cyclones. Not nearly as close as that. They walked over the Unicorns. Haha, puppet. That's why I put the pitch like a stormtrooper shirt on my.
Yes,
I think I get that because they miss everything. Is that what the whole thing? Like the pitch like a stormtroopers, they miss everything.
I like Puppet's joke. You could say they walked over the Unicorns.
I was trying not to pay attention to. Last game of that day, Cyclones with a huge 12-5 win. 5 of those coming in the first inning against Dana Pepperoni. Absolutely massacred. The same number of hits, 11 hits for each team. The difference is it wasn't 19 walks, but Dragons pitching gave up 13 walks, and no one was immune from it. Pepperoni gave up 5. Woody Scottish gave up 4. Mealy and Pitchwell each gave up 2. Icky Lancaster gets the win. Pepperoni gets the loss. Again, hitting wise, I mean, Sebastian Angelo went 4 for 5. This is the first time we got to see a Cyclones lineup that was set by Doctor since the start of the season. Really saw the fruits of that here. For the Dragons, Gary Starr went 3 for 4, didn't have that bad of a day. Harry Von Crum did something with a home run. I've watched Star Wars, but like I have to connect the dots for that.
I was gonna say, have you not watched Star Wars?
No, I've watched Star Wars, but like it's enough of an eclectic joke that I have to think about it.
Anyway, going back on this game, see, I don't get the Cyclones. One game they look terrible. The next game they're like, oh hey, yeah, we're playing up to our potential.
To be fair, I'm not trying to diss the Cyclones here because they did set a new lineup, and we obviously saw that. 1, Kyle Edwards was pitching. 2, the Dragons gave up 13 walks. Yes. So, how often are they going to be walked 13 times? Well, no, it is common, but I just have to think like miss the zone.
He's slow. Anyway,
I'm getting a PhD, boy. Watch your damn mouth.
Okay, God, please. I only have a bachelor's, man.
All right.
Master's,
All right, going finally into the last day of action. This time the Bombers get a 13-2 win. Winning pitcher is Ducato. 6 innings, 4 hits, 2 runs. Wrestles went 3 innings, no earned runs. And
game was pretty close until the 6th inning. Then it was just a massacre.
Yeah, absolutely. It was tied 2-2, and then Bombers pulled ahead 6-2, and then just didn't stop.
Yeah, good, decent game by Ducato. White Claw actually only pitching 2 1/3, but actually lowering her ERA for once, so good for her. Wrestle's coming in and shutting it down. Long got roughed up. Sims got roughed up. Just not a good day for the Gauchos.
Speaking of shutting down, moves to our next game. The Angels shut out the Overdrafts. Only allow 3 hits.
Tiffany and Springer.
Absolutely ridiculous. She gets the win. 3 hits, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts. Turf gets the loss. Did I see that correctly? Yeah, Neuenmiller with 2 home runs.
Yes, Neuenmiller had 2 home runs back to back, I believe. Stan Hanspringer just absolutely dominant. I think just absolutely. They had a hit off her the first batter of the game, and I think she went on to retire. Like I forgot how many straight, but they were without a hit for or a runner on base for a while. Blake Turf didn't pitch too terribly. Tostana came in and held it down, but Hansberger, just the MVP of this game, just absolutely shutting down the overdrafts.
Well, if your name is if your name is Aggie, you might want to turn away because this next one, 18-3, Lumberjacks, the worst team, the Heroic Legends, absolutely massacre the number one team in the Epic. This was with their 1, 2, 3, 4. To be fair, it was the ace pitching for the Lumberjacks, and for the Wildcats, it was their number 3. They still lost by 15 runs. Loss goes to Mars, win goes to Heimerdinger. Steelflex gets this.
Well, here's the thing. It's just I've been a big memer of the Lumberjacks because before this they had an abysmal run differential in their 5-game losing streak. And I think DDC is tired of me casting the Lumberjacks games. But yeah, it was home run after home run after home run after home run, and by the second inning it was already over, and by the third inning it was 14-0. Like, oh my god, this was an absolute massacre. And I actually was like, all right guys, what do you guys want to talk about? But yeah, Abel Mars getting called up from the minors after spending half the season. Whew!
Square, whatever you're playing with, it's coming through on your mic.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, oi, man. Let's put it this way. The number one team in the Epic, the one who has the number 1 seed, has a negative run differential.
Yeah.
It's not much, but it's still a negative run differential. Oof. That brings us to our last game of the week. The Retrievers get the win over the Skulls, 5-3. Winning pitcher is Tailwind. Peach Dropkin gets her last save as a Retriever. She probably didn't know it was her last game as a Retriever. She knew she was on the block, but her last performance, and she didn't give up a single hit, single earned run, a single walk. Which is what we've seen from Dropkin in the past couple of seasons with the Retrievers. And then Slump gets the loss, just new acquisition for Skulls, giving up 2 earned runs. Hitting wise, 2 hits for 1 deck in his last game as a Retriever. Woody Walker was 0-2 with 2 walks in his last game as a Retriever. Any thoughts about that game?
It was a nice game after having 18-3. Pretty clean game on both sides. It was a nice low scoring game for the most part. Only 7 hits on one side, 4 hits on the other. Good pitching, good defense. Retrievers get their revenge for the Super Series, given it is 2 different teams at this point. Dropkin, a nice send off for her last game as a Retriever.
Are Woody Walker and Alfred Walker related? Well, Woody Walker is black. Is Alfred Walker black?
No.
No. So I'm going to go with, if anything, they're adopted. Before we look at next week, let's have a look at the standings right now. Dragons and Knights tied for the number 1 seed in the Heroic Conference. Moonshots and Retrievers tied for the number 2 and 6 seeds. Vikings and Walkers at 4 and 5. The difference between the 5th seed and the 1st seed is 1 game. Walkers at 5 and 3, Dragons at 6 and 2. So and the Dragons play 2 games next week. So 2 losses, they could drop from 1st to 5th. Just quite simply. In terms of the Epic, Wildcats still lead at 5 and 2. The Serpents are sweaty palms at 4 and 3 in charge of the Epic Novas. Bombers pretty solidly in third place. They actually have the best magic number of anybody in the league at 3 because they've already played 10 games at 7-3. They are still how many games back are they of the? I think that's like 1.5 games back for Wildcats, I would say. The High Rollers and Angels both at 4-4 at 4-5, and then the Ball Players and Cyclones at 4-5 are sharing that number 6 spot. But no one is really out of it in the. I mean, quite frankly, the Stingers, you are not out of it. You are not that far behind by answer to the means. If you win your next game, you are a game behind. So you are 1.5 games out of a playoff spot with 6 games to go.
I want to be out of it.
Who knows, man? You could always just compete. Any thoughts on the standings as we see them right now?
Epic much more closer, but there is a lot of room for movement in the heroic. Just like you said, if you lose next 2 games, you instantly go down to 5th. Nothing. Pretty much, I like how nothing's set in stone at this point. No, there's really no team that's overly dominating, and I like the parity in the league that we've had so far. A lot of different teams at the top, a lot of different teams in the mix. It's nice to see there's no team overly dominating, and still a lot of meaningful baseball to be played.
All right. Well, with that, let's head and final thoughts. Looking at next week, we've got Stingers versus Serpents, Moonshots at Dragons, Wildcats at High Rollers, Lumberjacks at Knights. Any of those stick out to you?
Those last 3 games, a lot of meaningful games there. Moonshots, Dragons, Wildcats, High Rollers, Lumberjacks, Knights. All 3 of those games could easily be the SSBL game of that day. Lumberjacks, I think, have a very important week next week if they want to keep pace. High Rollers, Wildcats, that's going to be a bloodbath. There's some very good games next week.
We start out with the Pee Wee Stingers and Serpents, but to be frank, given what we've seen from the Serpents this year, who knows how that game could turn out.
Also, it's Robin Ryan.
Oh, too, as well. Not to be biased, but I think Dragons Moonshots is a huge game, specifically for the Dragons. That is
I think Wildcats High Rollers too, to be honest with you.
Well, because for the High Rollers, like that's a way for them to move in. I think if the Dragons want to make sure they're not cursed, they need to win that game. But they'll have a shot the next day. As on day 2, we've got Unicorns at Serpents, Overdrafts at Gauchos, Dragons at Romfielders, and Bombers at High Rollers. My first thoughts is out of all those Bombers at High Rollers, it's a good thing that that's the last game because that is a very intense game to have. The others, at first glance, kind of look one-sided, but who knows what happens.
I know, and I'm gonna end up doing this day 2. God, I miss all the meaningful games, and I get the tankings. But Bombers High Rollers should be the very, very, very nice game. That's I think they've already played once. Yes.
Which one? Bombers High Rollers.
Yeah, Bombers took the first game 9-6. It was the first
opening game.
Of the season. Yeah, opening game. So a little bit of a rematch here. High Rollers again. High Rollers and Lumberjacks, 2 teams that have very big weeks, biggest weeks for those teams. Wildcats too also have 2 meaningful games. A lot of division and meaningful games next week.
Well, we're starting to get towards the end of the season, and considering you play 8 games out of your 14, what's that? 4 out of the 7 games, or like 4/7 of your games are against interdivision teams, and given the end of the year is fast approaching, as we're more than halfway through, these are really meaningful. Day 3, Serpents at Stingers, so a rematch of the first game of the week. Lumberjacks at Walkers, Ball Players at Bombers, Wildcats at Angels. The one that really sticks out to me, honestly, even though Wildcats as Angels I think will be a good one, is Lumberjacks at Walkers.
I agree. That could be depending on how the day 1 goes for the Lumberjacks. That could be a big that could be a season changer for both teams because Walkers get a win, they get a key win in the division and move up. But the Lumberjacks, both teams, that's a huge game. That's an absolutely huge game.
If the Lumberjacks go 4-7 next week, or they if they Lumberjacks lose both of those games next week, the next closest playoff spot that they have would be at well, not closest because we don't know what happens to the Retrievers, but like the it would separate the teams in the Heroic Legends. It would be the Lumberjacks plus the 4 good teams if they're not able to get at least one win.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when they're fighting again, the Retrievers are already in a tanking mode. But if we look at who the Retrievers have left this season, they have Knights, Overdrafts, Moonshots, Walkers, Lumberjacks, Gauchos. So they've actually kind of gotten the easy part of their schedule kind of out of the way. Overdrafts and Gauchos are probably going to be easiest matchups that they'll have. So they could easily fall out of it, and the Lumberjacks could take that place. Point of note, Week 11, Day 3, the third to last day of the season, we've got Retrievers hosting the Lumberjacks. Could be a huge matchup if the two teams are indeed battling for a 6th place.
Yeah. Just there's a lot of. I think we're gonna see wildly different, like how the standings look right now. It's gonna be wildly different after next week. A lot of division games, a lot of games that for teams that can move up, move down. I think the 2 teams to watch here obviously are the High Rollers and Lumberjacks. Two big games for them as well against teams that are above them in the standing. So it's going to be fun to watch. That day 1 is absolutely stacked, however.
Absolutely. Well, are there any final thoughts in the chat? And Squared, any final thoughts from you?
No, it's nice to see halfway. It feels like this season's going quickly, flying by. Nice to see that we're.
It's funny because we took a week off.
I know, yeah. We took a week off. It's. I feel like this season much smoother than last season. And I appreciate you guys being patient with us. And don't forget, Eos also. You have what?
Less than 11 hours.
Yeah, less than 11 hours to trade. So, everybody, get those trades in. I have posted in the and some shameless plug. I have posted in the chat. I will listen to all offers. Doesn't mean I'll trade anything, but I will listen to offers because I'm curious.
What are you looking for?
Picks. That's all. All the picks or your player.
The player that you and I talked about is still available. Power to make a trade with you.
Yes, potentially. Yes. We can talk more.
If I'm saying trade with me, Elder, thanks guys. Have a good one. All right, everybody. Well, that's gonna do it for today's Rigged. Make sure you tune in on Monday. That's most likely going to be.
It's either. Wait, hold on. Is it? It's probably gonna be,
it's probably gonna be Whitney, and because.
Oh, Whitney, yeah, he can't do day 3.
Yeah, he for sure can't do that. Which
so like how it might look next week? It's probably gonna be Whitney, me, Fizek.
Which, like, to be frank, of all of the casters, I don't mind casting my own games if I have to. You guys much prefer to not cast your own games, but
I mean, I will, but I much prefer not to, but I will if need be.
I don't think it's a good idea for me to cast Moonshots Dragons, though. that one's a little bit too close. All right, guys. So most likely Whitney on the call Monday. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and until next time, keep on rigging, everybody.